Good afternoon. I'm so excited. First, Sergeant, can you introduce yourself, please?
Oh yes, I'm First Sergeant Dontre Robinson from Echo 232nd Medical Battalion here at Fort Sam Houston, 68 Whiskey by trade. Been in the Army for a long 19 glorious years. I'm originally from Gary, Indiana, and raised in Houston, Texas, and joined the Army in November of 2003 as a 68 Whiskey.
So I would like to ask, how did you get to this person in this point in time?
I would say just throughout my journey in the Army and throughout life, I've always been calm, cool, and collected.
Was that a learned behavior or taught?
I think it was taught by my mom. My mom is the same as me. She's calm, cool, collected all the time. Like you never know when she's mad, never know when she's upset, never know her, what she's thinking or whatnot. So I think growing up in our house, she taught me all that.
And how do you think that's helped you throughout your career with conflict or adversity?
I think it helped me because no matter what it is, I know personally that they can't affect me throughout the entire day. Like once I go home, that conflict or whatnot disappears. And I go home to my family, my kids, and I don't bring that home. And so just having that at-home life and that work life and knowing that if it happens at work, I'm gonna leave it at work. I live 30 minutes away, and so that drive home lets me cool down, or that drive to work kind of lets me get focused on work and get in that mentality of, hey, I'm gonna make it through the day, and no matter what happens, I'm still going home to my family.
So the reason why I asked you to have this conversation is that I might not have verbalized it, but as we work together, I could see that you're a really good human being, and you took care of your soldiers, and you're a hard worker. Did you learn that, or was that something that you observed, or is that just part of your core values?
I would say all of the above, actually. I think when I was a private, I had a lot of good leaders, not just NCOs, but officers. I come from a strong female family, so their hard work and all that stuff kind of got instilled into me at a young age. I played team sports, so throughout my life, so you can only imagine trying to play sports year-round, 4 different sports, just building that team cohesiveness, taking care of each other, looking out for each other. And then when I joined the Army, I was 18 years old, so a baby. Then I deployed to Iraq at, I think, 19. And so people had to take care of me because I was a baby and didn't know any better.
So when you're so I want to backtrack because we worked together at Delta Company 232, and you and I didn't always get along, but you still treated me with dignity and respect. With that being said, is that just something that's instilled in you, or did you learn that? Did you journal? How did you get to the point where you can have a disagreement with somebody but still treat them with dignity and respect?
I think it comes from your upbringing. Like I said, my mom, she instilled a lot of good core values. Same with my grandma and my great grandma. And so always dignity and respect to no matter who it is, could be your enemy or whatnot, but always treat people with dignity and respect because you want the same in return. So we might not agree with everything, you might not like my decisions, and if I'm a leader, I have to understand that not everything is going to go my way, or as a subordinate, not everything is going to go the subordinate's way. So you still got to treat everybody with that dignity and respect at the end of the day, no matter what circumstances are around.
So you've helped me through some dark times. So I want to ask some questions, not specific to my situation, but to having to deal with differences amongst your command teams. What would you say to a subordinate who is having a really difficult time, that's very direct, but they can't be direct, and how to have an uncomfortable conversation with their command team about how they are perceived?
I would say, I know everybody's not the same way. Everybody's different, but I'm the person that you can just talk to.
You're very easy to talk to.
If you have differences with what's going on in the company as a leader, you should be able to come to me and we can hash things out professionally, personally, or just come to an agreement of how to approach things with that individual or a group of individuals.
With that being said, should I have the personal courage to have that conversation, even though I'm kind of fearful of navigating that water?
I think you should have personal courage because you might not know what that conversation is going to lead to. You might be surprised by the outcome of it. They may take all of it in. They may take a little of it. They may hear you and change how they talk to you or how they interact with you based on you coming forward. But if you don't have that conversation, then it's going to stay at that, what it was before.
And in your opinion, when would being direct become confrontational or disrespectful when you're trying to voice how your command team is perceiving you?
I would say, like I said, you can go talk to them, but you have to have tact, right?
And what is tact though?
So you have to be professional, even though you might get emotional or it might be coming from the heart. It might not come off, how you want it to come off, or it may not be perceived by the people that you're trying to talk to, the command team or whatnot, or your supervisor or whatnot. But as long as you're professional with them, not cursing, body language is a big key in how we communicate too. So as long as we're not doing that stuff, then you should be fine.
I want to talk about another situation where, as drill sergeants, I wouldn't say it's very competitive, but it tends to be where there's like a pecking order. What would you tell a fellow drill sergeant about a conversation that they had heard about them with two other drill sergeants that was not true, but everybody was thinking that was true? Would you have them confront that, or would you have them leave it alone? What kind of advice would you give them?
I wouldn't necessarily confront them. I would bring them to my chain of command, especially if you guys are the same rank or you might be a subordinate of them. I would take it, to my first sergeant and my commander, or possibly a senior drill sergeant to help me out and navigate through that situation. If they're talking stuff about you behind your back, then it's obviously going to not be a great conversation. It might be something that you can't control emotionally, or words might come out that are going to later on look like you are attacking them, even though they were behind your back talking nonsense about you. So if you have that third party in there to hash out things, that's probably the best option. And then you also have your other services that you can go to get some feedback and try to squash the rumors or from the naysayers or whatnot.
Can you share a time where you had to deal with adversity or conflict within your career, and how did you resolve that, and what were the outcomes?
Conflict.
That you can share.
Conflict. Pretty a non-conflict person, but I would say I was in Germany. I was a specialist. Just got my P status, but there's a lot of us. There's a lot of E4 below in our medical platoon, and never forget this. We were doing PT. It was just E4 is the NCOs were actually watching us do PT from the from the barracks window, and it was raining, and one soldier, he didn't want to do the exercises. I'm like, so like everybody else is doing the exercising, you're not doing it. So what's the problem? We're the same rank too. He was a specialist promotable too, and I'm like, that's not legal. And so he was yelling back at me in front of everybody, and I don't like people trying to challenge me in front of people. So I kind of had a cool head, but he had walked off from formation, and the NCOs saw that, and they gathered both of us together, and they were like, "What was going on?" And he was like, "I didn't want to do PT," and the NCOs were like, "Well, you're in formation or whatnot, and you're supposed to be conducting PT with Specialist Robinson." And so he was like, "Well, Specialist Robinson was disrespecting me." I was like, "No, I'm not." He was like, "I was just trying to lead PT because the NCOs asked me to lead PT." And so the long story short, they made him write me a letter apologizing to me for disrespecting me in front of the rest of the, the E4 below mafia and whatnot. So.
Do you feel as though that most conflicts are just your perception or your reality of the situation that's going on, or just a miscommunication?
Absolutely, miscommunication. Because you don't know what that person's thinking. You don't know what that person's intentions are. They could be good intentions, but if you communicate and be an effective communicator, then most conflicts can probably be, dispersed of.
Can we talk about, so what does effective communication look like though?
You have to have a two-way conversation. Either you're actively listening, giving feedback, that person has to receive it, take it up in the head, process it, and then communicate back with, what was going on.
I want to talk about another situation a little bit after you left Delta Company. So I had asked some of the staff sergeants for help, and they said, why does the senior non-commissioned officer need help? And I kind of took that personal, and they were doing it in front of soldiers. And so I got to the point where I was just telling everybody to fuck off, fuck you. And one of them kept poking the bear. And I was like, if you don't get out my face, I'm gonna put my hands on you. What guidance would you give me to resolve that and to repair those relationships?
So one thing, no matter who we are, human beings, NCOs, soldiers, officers, leaders, subordinates, everybody needs help, right? Everybody does not know the answer to everything. I was a drill sergeant. Did I know everything? I knew a lot.
You did know a lot.
But did I know everything? And can I do it by myself?
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't know what was going on with that soldier, so I needed to rely on you and the other drill sergeants to give me that information when I was acting first sergeant or whatnot, so I can go, tell the commander and whatnot to handle the situation with that soldier. So I don't know everything. You don't know everything. So it's okay to ask for help, right?
Do you think it's the culture of the Army, or do you think that's just self-inflicted, that we're so fearful of not looking squared away that we don't ask for help? And then when we do ask for help and we get a negative response, we just act out in a non-professional way?
I think that it's the culture in the Army. Because, like myself, I'm a first sergeant. And if I'm in a room with other first sergeants and I don't know the answer, I think I'm gonna ask for help. Me personally, I'm gonna ask for help, right? I don't know everything, but a lot of people, they don't know everything, and they won't ask for help because they don't want to look like dumb, right?
What do you think the root cause of our inability to resolve issues among ourselves and peers and leaders within the Army culture?
The communication, miscommunication, not interpreting or what that person meant to say or is actually thinking, happens in the civilian world, happens all over the planet. Even people doing interviews can, misinterpret what you're saying. Happens in the news, happens in the sports world, happens in the Army all the time. So we just have to understand each other. You might have to break it down a little bit if they don't understand, but communication is the key to communication and understanding that person's thoughts or whatnot.
So you may not know this, but I admire you because you're very cool, collected, you're not easily bothered, and you're a hard worker. And I just want to know, how did you get to that place, or this place as you are now? Was that like you saw somebody, or was that the values? Because as we go through our Army career, we can have a lot of turbulence sometimes.
Absolutely. The Army is not all sunshines and rainbows. Life is not all sunshines and rainbows, and you're going to have your trials and your tribulations. But I think growing up, or how I grew up, I didn't have a dad, right? And so my my grandma, I had a great grandma, I had an aunt. They all took care of me, no matter what I was doing. Hard worker, all of them. My grandma was working. I think she was like 90. She was actually like 91 or something, and she was babysitting a 93-year-old lady. She'll go there at night and babysit her. So she's working all the way into her death. My grandma, she just retired, but she workaholic, and my mom is a very amazing, incredible woman that works all the time. She called me yesterday morning. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning actually, and she called me again at like 10:30 at night. She was still at work. I'm like, Mom, like I had went to work and I'm already home. Like, you need to go home. So she instilled they all instilled those core values, in me as a young child, and it kind of just grew with me playing sports, having all those coaches hold me accountable. That's a big thing for young people, young soldiers. Nobody's holding them accountable.
What does holding someone accountable look like?
Telling them when they're messed up, right? Telling them that, hey, you could do this better. Showing them a way, being a role model for that person, encouraging them, giving them words of wisdom, stuff like that.
What is your approach when communicating with peers and senior leaders? Or do you have an approach?
I don't have an approach. I am who I am, and they're going to get what they get. If they like it, they like it. If they don't like it, then they can't change it. All right. I'll be tactful toward them, but I'm gonna talk to you like I talk to everybody. I'm gonna talk to a junior soldier like I talk to an NCO, like I talk to an officer, like I talk to a general, like I talk to the civilian on the street. I'm gonna talk to everybody the same way. Talk to my kids the same way. Just treating people with dignity and respect.
So I hear that a lot, especially as being a drill sergeant. What does dignity and respect look like?
Basically, how do you want to be talked to? Mm-hmm. How do you want to interact with people? How do you want people to not really think about you? Because I really don't care about that, but how do you want people to approach you? Do you want to be approachable? Do you want soldiers to bring you your issues, right? You want people to bring your issues so you can handle it, and you have that feel good in you to help people. That's a big one.
So what would you say if someone came to you and said, people are telling them that they're not approachable? Would you have them like tinker with some things within their personality, or would you just tell them to leave it alone?
It depends, right? It's a weird street, right? Because one person can think that you're unapproachable. But the masses can think that you're approachable. So do you change? Probably not, right? So don't just change for one person who may not like, your background or how you talk to people or how you interact with people, but I'm pretty sure there's people out there that actually will come up to you and say that you're approachable. So you can't please everybody.
So going back to hard work, how do you deal with people within your environment or your coworkers who don't work hard? Do you have those uncomfortable conversations, or do you just push them to the side? Like, what does that look like?
That part, I would just do the work for them. It's probably not the best course of action.
But why would you do the work for them?
Because I want the work done right, and if I could just do it myself, it might take 5 minutes, rather than sitting there explaining to somebody that's going to take 15 to 20 minutes when I need something done right then and there. If it's something that's going to take 2 seconds, then I might say, hey, you need to do this, like this, like this, like this, and expect them to do it like this, like that, and be correct. But if it's something that I really need, it's something tedious that needs to be turned in or something like that, and I ask them to do it once and they don't do it, it's too easy for me to go in there and do it. So.
Do you think in the drill sergeant and cadre culture, it's easier for us to get away with not doing our part or our share?
No, I think as a cadre drill sergeant, you have to be a team player. If you have a good team and everybody's bought into that, taking care of the soldiers and helping people to the left, your fellow drill sergeants, because small dynamic, right?
What does that small dynamic look like or consist of?
Just a group of, what is it, like 12 to 16 people. So you need everybody to be on the same page because you have to move up to 400 soldiers. You have to be on the same page with all 16 of the drill sergeants, to be able to move soldiers from A to Z, make sure that people are going to appointments, make sure people are getting chow, make sure people are going to school. Like everything needs to be like precise. You can't have that one outlier or those couple of outliers that are not brought on board to the system of how you run your company and whatnot. So if everybody's bought in, like everybody says like, oh, I don't want to be a drill sergeant because of the hours. But if you have a good team that works together and truly cares for each other, it's probably going to be the best rewarding job that you'll ever have. So.
As far as your interactions with trainees, what would you say has been the highlight or that significant part where you can actually see them going from compliance to commitment?
I would say like graduation, right? Like, you're leaving the CFTX, and the soldiers know that they're graduating for the most part, and 16 weeks of the 68 whiskey MOS is short, but it's actually pretty long. Seeing these people, get off the bus coming from basic training, get them from the airport, scared, not knowing that, hey, like, yeah, we got the brown round, but we're people. We've been in your shoes before. We're not gonna, disrespect you. We're gonna coach, mentor, and teach you to be, 68 whiskeys, to be leaders throughout that entire 16 weeks, so you can take it to when you go to your next duty station or go back home if you're, combo 2 or 3. But at graduation, you kind of feel like a proud parent, right? Mm-hmm. And you can see the smiles on their face. They want to take pictures with you, and you know that they're compliant within the Army values of the Soldier's Creed, and they're living that for the most part.
Back to conflict. What advice would you give to someone that is having a difficult time dealing with conflict and adversity, or they just don't know how to navigate those or have those uncomfortable conversations with their coworkers or their peers?
Ask for help. You have leadership that should be there for you to talk to. Maybe your command team, maybe a battle buddy, a peer. Ask them for assistance. Sometimes it can be, they may have a good relationship with the person that you're having a conflict with, so they may interpret what you're trying to say to them, or they can, tell you, that person, it's probably just some, misunderstanding or something like that. So if you get somebody else to come assist you with that conflict, majority of the time that might go, in your favor.
Are there times where you've had conflict with your superiors that you can share, and how did you resolve that?
Yeah, I have conflict with my commander.
Is that because of personality or just difference of opinion?
Yeah, I would say both. We're two totally different people. At the end of the day, we want the same thing, but me, I'm a super hard worker, right? And so I expect most people to do their job, right, pitch in. And so when you don't pitch in, that can lead to some uncomfortable conversations between the both of us, or and saying, hey, like, it's 9:10. I've been at work since 5 o'clock. Like, why are you coming in at 9:10? We have stuff to do. It can lead to that, or everybody's not. You don't pick who your leadership is, right? The Army picks for you. So you're not going to get along with everybody at every given second. But
so how do you deal with that crossroad? Or do you deal with it, or you just
I talk to my commander. I let him know, I mean, he's not a bad guy. He's a great guy, right? But I let him know, like, hey, you could have did this, you could have did that. You just have, like, if he does something wrong, it's like, hey, you could have just came and asked me about it, and we could have came to a resolution. And most of the time, he's like, you know what, I overreacted or something like that, or I probably shouldn't have sent that email. I probably should have came and see, saw you first or something like that before I sent that email, or went to go talk to the drill sergeants about something that you already knew about and you already, taken care of. So it's communication still.
What are some of the misconceptions that we have about being a first sergeant and having to deal with the commander?
I would say most first sergeants have been in the Army 10 plus years, right? So we have that background of, coming from baby private to now, senior and non-commissioned officers. The commanders can be in the Army for 4 years or whatnot, so they don't have that much experience with different processes or whatnot. Yeah, there's probably pretty smart, in the civilian world or whatnot, in education stuff, but not really Army smart. And so that's our job to coach, mentor them to be, better soldiers or whatnot, since we have that experience.
What advice would you give to a first sergeant who just is fed up with their better half or don't know how to communicate with their better half?
Like you said, go get coffee. And sit down with them and go get coffee, have that heart to heart. My commander has a couch in his office, and any given time that I have a conflict with them or whatnot, not a real conflict, but like we need to get on the same page, I go sit in that chair with them, and we have that conversation. Might close the door sometimes. The door might be open, but we talk about it, and usually it gets resolved, whatever it is. So if you communicate with them, let them know your feelings, and say, hey, we need to be on the same page to be able to run the company effectively, because the people below you, if y'all don't get along, your peers, the rest of the company first sergeants, company command teams, they know it. Your subordinates know it. And so if you come out as a front, a one team in front of everybody, then you should be fine.
Throughout our conversation, I pick up on some themes. So it's dignity and respect and kindness. And as long as you have those true core values, then when you come against conflict and adversity, you can truly be your authentic self to overcome that.
Absolutely. Always.
So now I'm going to ask you some conclusion questions that I usually generally ask everybody. Define leadership in your own words.
Leadership is basically problem solving.
Because
you're trying to provide mentorship, direction, motivation to either a person or a group of people to get after a mission, solve a problem. I think General Colin Powell said, once a soldier stops bringing you their problems, you became an ineffective leader, right? And so if they bring you your problems and you help them navigate, from A to Z and get around those obstacles in the middle, then pretty much probably a good leader, and they might bring more problems to you that you can solve. So.
What would you want your younger Army self to know?
That there's a lot of bumps and bruises in this thing called the Army. Not everything's a smooth sailing. Not everything's a straight road. There's a lot of curves in the road. There's a lot of, we carry a rucksack as soldiers, right? And usually, you want, if you're going, 20 years, you want that rucksack to sometimes be empty. Because if you have it full, right, you're going to be struggling at the end, right? Or in the middle or whatnot. So all those problems that you have, whether it's in personal, whether it's professionally, take care of it so that rucksack can be empty. You can carry on the mission.
What is your greatest professional regret that you can share?
Greatest professional regret?
Or personal regret?
Personal regret, I would say you gotta take care of your family, right?
Yeah.
The Army's gonna be here. The Army goes rolling along, and so you have to leave work at work.
So why do you think that some of us don't know how to do that? Like we consistently like work 12, 14-hour days when we're really not getting nothing done. We're just being seen.
It's a culture. Growing up in the on the line unit or whatnot, mission, and so a lot of times we're just doing a mission, doing in the motor pool, waiting, and we're at work for what reason? And so I think as you grow older, you're like, hey, I got this mindset of holding people here to past what time it should be here. The Army most people should be going home at 1700. There shouldn't be people not probably in this environment, but in the Army, 1700 should be cut off for everybody. And then obviously you should have your family day, but it needs to be a cutoff. Like the Army will go rolling along. We will, if something happens in the world, we will win that fight. So take care of your family and be there for your family. Make those events that you need to make. Kids' birthdays, school plays, all that stuff.
If you were to create a mantra, what would your mantra be and why? Besides cool, calm, and collected.
Never change. Never change. Probably my favorite Jay-Z song.
So how would you get me to the point somewhere I never change? Would you like have me do some homework? Would that just be like coming to see you like once a week? Like how would you mentor me through Drill Sergeant Thomas? This is who you are. Don't change for anything.
You have to know who you are, right? You have to know everything about yourself, because the outside, they don't know everything about you. They may think they know you, they don't know you. And so if you know yourself, you know what your worth is, you know what kind of person you are, you would know that, hey, I'm not changing for nobody.
What is your biggest lesson learned over the course of your career as of today?
Biggest lesson learned: taking care of people. Ask for help if needed, but taking care of people, we can't do this by ourselves. And so, like, I go out my way to, at home, go meet my neighbors, right? Because I might need them. Maybe, my oldest is at home and he needs help, and so I live 30 minutes away, and I probably can't get there. And so if I call my neighbor and say, hey, I need help real fast, can you help my son? Maybe it's something small or something until I get home. Maybe it's something big, right? My mom lives in North Carolina and my grandma lives in Houston, and so I'm not always there. So we have to rely on people to help us.
Well, I would have never thought that you were a big teddy bear with your rough exterior. I
wouldn't say I'm a teddy bear, but I do.
Well, you treat people with kindness. I mean, most people do not. Or most people don't lead. Most people, or most of us, don't lead with kindness. We lead with presuming, or we lead by having a conversation to reply, instead of just actually being present with that human being.
Yeah, you have to listen to people. So if you listen to people will bring you their problems more often, and just give them sound advice, good advice, and like trials and tribulations and whatnot, so that you went through. Try to school that person that's going through that.
Well, thank you, Sergeant. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.